All right, we're going to initiate our conversation. Ask the expert. Listen, if you've got any questions for Auger Hollingsworth, we've got Brenda Hollingsworth. She's a lawyer and partner at Auger Hollingsworth. She's here with us. She can answer all your questions. We're talking about driving safety. What are your rights on the roads? And we're also going to be talking about hit and run. What happens in that case? Here's our information there. Send us a question and she'll answer it for you. You can reach out to us, 613-789-6559, extension 2803. We're also at ottawa.morning@ctv.ca, and we're also on Facebook. Well, she's a personal lawyer. We are discussing and making sure that you have the right insurance. We're going to be talking about that. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Yeah,
Welcome.
nice to see you.
Thank you for coming in person.
I know, I love it.
On this snowy day. Already got 4 centimeters on the ground. It's been a slick drive.
Yeah, there are going to be some calls, we know, on a day like today. Fortunately, most of the accidents on a day like today tend to be of the fender bender slide into each other variety.
Yes.
Because people are being quite cautious, hopefully.
Yes.
Be cautious.
That is true. And, you know, we're hoping for the best that nobody is injured. But let's talk about, we got a couple of scenarios that we want to throw to you. And then you can give us your take on the legal aspects of them. Let's talk first off, hit and run.
Right.
And here's the scenario. This is an example. I was in a hit and run collision 5 years ago. I just had surgery for that injury due to backlogs. What are my options, Brenda?
Yeah, so this is actually not an uncommon scenario. So there's a few different things. A hit and run makes the person think, I probably don't have anyone to sue because I don't have a name.
Yes.
Well, the reality is anybody who has car insurance has coverage in case of a hit and run. And so you actually, it's kind of weird, but you sue someone called John Doe or Jane Doe, and your insurance basically defends the claim, but also pays out the claim. So do not decide that you don't have a case if you're seriously injured because it's a slip and hit and run and the police didn't catch the person. It's really important. It happens all the time.
So if you've got car insurance, you're a driver, you've got the insurance, and then there's on the unfortunate incident where you're in a hit and run, so you turn around, they're gone, you have nobody to sue.
Happens all the time, by the way.
You can do that. You can put that claim in. Is there a time limit?
Yes, so this person waited 5 years, but they are likely out of time. So really it's 2 years. And so what you do is you tell your own insurance company, this has happened, and you need to talk to a lawyer because there are some technical requirements in a hit and run case, and you have to make sure that you meet them. But everybody who has car insurance in Ontario has at least $200,000 in coverage for unidentified motorist. And then most of us also have something called the family protection endorsement. And that's really important. Find out what your family protection endorsement is. We just renewed our insurance this week, and I made sure ours was $5 million. So that means that if I get hit and somebody takes off and I can prove there was a hit and run, there's up to $5 million to cover the people in my car, not just me, but the people in my car who are related to me. They'd have about $5 million to cover the injuries, loss of income, all of the expenses that come with an accident.
This is really critical information here. I mean, to know that you have the right type of insurance.
Yes.
Can you give us a little more detail?
Almost everybody has this. It's called the family protection endorsement. Most insurance brokers won't let you opt out of it. It's very cheap. But if you only have $1 million in liability coverage, in 2022, it's probably not enough. We get claims over $1 million every week. We're settling a case over $1 million. And so if that's all you've got, anything over that million's coming from your personal assets. So really in Ontario, you should have a minimum of $2 million. You know, maybe I'm paranoid with my $5 million, but I'd rather be paranoid than sorry. And it's not that much. I mean, you know, I can afford it. If you can afford it, paying the extra to get that extra coverage, because it's not just you, right? It's your kids.
You mentioned that. You mentioned that if you're, for example, in a hit and run, it's not just you in the car. If there are other people in the car that were injured, they can be covered, you know, with a greater amount.
Exactly. Like heaven forbid something happens and your whole family's in the car. Even $2 million might not be enough, right?
continuing our conversation. Send us your questions for Brenda Hollingsworth at Auger Hollingsworth. She's a lawyer, and we're talking about your legal rights in the case of hit and run, and if you're traveling and you're injured, what do you do? That information is out there. You can send us your questions, 613-789-6559, extension 2803. Thanks for sticking around, Brenda. We got another scenario for you, okay? Scenario number 2. So I was injured in the U.S. The at-fault driver is only insured for $250,000, but my injuries are worth much more. What should I do, Brenda?
Right. So this is a real scenario that happens all the time. You pursue the case in the U.S. and you get the maximum that you can using a U.S. lawyer to help you in the state where you're injured, and then, or simultaneously, you contact an Ontario lawyer, and we start a claim against your own insurance company.
Got it.
For the difference between what you collect on the U.S. policy and what you're entitled to. And so if you had $1 million in liability policy, you get $250,000 from the U.S. policy. There's up to $750,000 available if we can prove that your damages are that high.
Do you need a lawyer here in, let's say, Ontario, for example, that specializes in, or is, U.S. law? Because will the two merge?
No. So the Ontario case is run by Ontario rules.
Okay.
There are some. That's actually a very good question. There are some carryovers from the U.S. law, but we would use a U.S. lawyer to help us with that. You probably would have a U.S. lawyer because you got the money in the U.S. case. So we would use that lawyer to help us prove a few of the things that are relevant. But this is your underinsured motorist coverage.
Yes, okay.
So I said you have unidentified motorist coverage in your policy. You also have underinsured motorist coverage, plus your family endorsement coverage. That's what lets you do this. So if you're someone who travels to Florida, you go through a number of states that have either no policy limits, so people could be driving around with no liability insurance. I think New Hampshire is one of those states. And then lots of other states have either $250,000 or $50,000. So you are exposed, if you have a serious accident down there, and there's big highways, lots of trucks, things happen. If that happens to you, you're not stuck with the limits in the U.S. policy. You can come up here and get the difference if your injuries are serious enough. Okay, and once again here we're talking about coverage now in that unfortunate event that something like that were to happen. You're injured in the U.S. in a car accident, and then the person in the States who's very, very like his coverage, her coverage, their coverage, not that much. Yeah.
How do you know that your coverage is enough to compensate for them being really underfunded with their coverage? Yeah, so everybody who watches this show should know, you should know what your liability coverage is, right? Maybe you bought insurance 15 years ago and you just keep renewing it. Yes. Don't do that. Phone your insurance company when you have a moment, because you'll probably be on hold, but phone them and find out what your liability coverage is so that you know. And like I said, if you can afford it, $2 million is probably the sweet spot. Because that same accident we're just talking about in the U.S., maybe it's you and your spouse in the car, and you're both injured. And $250,000. If you both have jobs where you make $80,000 a year, and you're both off work for a year. There you go. There you go, right? By the time you pay for your injuries and legal fees and a year's worth of wages each, you're there. Brenda, I think that a lot of times when we think about car insurance and insurance, we're just thinking about protecting the car. Yes. Okay, my car is worth about $60,000, so just make sure that that's taken care of. Right. But you really have to pay attention to the details here in terms of personal injury. Yeah. Anybody in the car that's injured, what are the ramifications of that? What would the cost be? Exactly. Liability insurance is really what saves, we're all human, right? You could cause an accident. You could be at fault for an accident, and you could injure somebody, or there could be 3 people in the car who are a little bit injured, and that adds up. And it's your insurance policy that's going to pay for that. And if you don't have enough insurance, and they don't have enough insurance, or maybe they don't have a car, they're coming after your house. Yeah. Right? Okay. And we do that. I've taken people's houses.
I will do that to you if you don't have enough insurance. Not because I'm mean, but because my client needs that money.
Sure.
And so you've got to make sure that you have enough liability, that your assets are protected, and your family's protected in case you're in an accident with somebody who doesn't have the right insurance.
There you have it, information for Brenda Hollingsworth, Auger Hollingsworth. You got any questions, personal injury questions, reach out to them. They offer a free consultation, 613-233-4529. And you can see their website, injurylaw.com. All right, we're going to finish up our conversation here, personal injury, what you should do, what kind of coverage you need. But we do have a question from our viewers. Let's put that up on the screen here. Zeta writes, I was injured in an accident and the at-fault driver has not followed up or returned my inquiries. What should I do? Brenda.
Right. Yeah, so that happens fairly often. You were smart at the scene of the accident, you collect the person's information, and then you get nothing. So depending, if it's just your body that you're worried about, not your vehicle, that would be a time to contact a personal injury lawyer. Yeah. There is a standard letter that we write to the at-fault driver, and we tell them to notify their insurance, because that's what you want, right? When you're in a personal injury case, you're not really dealing with the at-fault driver, you're dealing with their insurance company. Okay. And so that's what you've got to get to, is their insurance company. And the way to get to the insurance company is to have the at-fault driver give the letter to the insurance company. So that would be the best recommendation, is even if you're not going to have a full-blown lawsuit, just to kind of start the ball rolling, that's what I would do. And lawyers will typically do that for you, or they'll give you a sample letter to send on your own. You could also contact your own insurance for accident benefits. You should do that within 7 days of an accident, and they might be able to help you start the process with the other insurance company as well.
It sounds like Zeta did the right thing. I mean, Zeta got the person's information,
yes.
So, but now cannot cannot get that conversation going. So at least Zeta has the contact information, so Zeta can pass it on to the personal injury lawyer or her insurance company.
Exactly.
First and foremost, you get that information.
Right.
Very, very important. But it can be difficult to follow up. That's why a personal injury lawyer would come into the play.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, in the old days, you used to get the insurance number for the at-fault driver as well, or the insurance contact. The police used to give it to you. But if Zeta got the insurance from the person who caused the accident, she could also write to them.
Okay, we've got a quick little scenario for you here, and we'll get to this. I was seriously injured when I was a passenger in someone else's car. The at-fault driver's policy is $1 million, but the owner's liability policy $2 million. What am I owed, Brenda?
Right. Well, there's a lot in that question, and we've been talking about this. If you have access to family protection because you have it or someone in your household has it, and it's $2 million, then you have up to $2 million available for your damages. Now that does not mean you are owed $2 million.
Yes, that's right.
So how much you're entitled to after an accident depends on the severity of your injuries and how they impact your function. It depends a lot on your loss of income. That's where the big money is in Ontario. So if you hear that somebody got $1 million, it's likely not because of their injury. It's likely because of the impact on their ability to earn an income. Future care costs, attendant care, housekeeping, those are the normal things that we're claiming. And if there's $2 million policy and you can prove that your damages are up to $2 million, then that's what would be available to you.
Fascinating stuff. Always great talking to you in person.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you, Brenda Hollingsworth from Auger Hollingsworth. If you want to reach out to them, there's their information. Phone number 613-233-4529.